Stand on the shore and look toward the horizon. The ocean feels endless. For thousands of years, it was more than a body of water. It was a barrier. Every message between continents had to cross it by ship, and that meant waiting weeks, or even months, for news from the other side. Then, in 1854, someone asked a question that sounded almost absurd. What if we connected continents with a wire lying on the floor of the ocean? It wasn't simply a bold idea. It challenged everything people believed was possible. How do you place a wire across an ocean more than 3,000 kilometers wide and nearly 5,000 meters deep in places? How do you keep it from snapping under its own weight? How do you even know where to put it when much of the Atlantic seabed had never been mapped? To many engineers and scientists of the time, the proposal seemed less like engineering and more like wishful thinking. Yet one man refused to let the idea die. In 1854, American entrepreneur Cyrus Westfield became convinced that if railways could unite countries, perhaps a telegraph cable could unite continents. Not because it would be easy, because the world needed it. The first challenge wasn't laying the cable. It was making one that could survive. A simple copper wire wasn't enough. It had to carry electrical signals for more than 3,000 kilometers beneath the sea. It had to be insulated from seawater using gutta percha, a natural latex imported from Southeast Asia. Years of experimentation turned an impossible idea into something engineers believed might actually work. Then came an even greater challenge. How do you lay thousands of kilometers of cable without losing it? The answer was as ingenious as the idea itself. By 1857, specially designed cable-laying ships carried enormous circular tanks filled with carefully coiled cable. As the ships moved across the Atlantic, powerful braking machines controlled exactly how fast the cable entered the sea. Too fast, and it would tangle or break. Failure became their greatest teacher. Then, on August 5, 1858, the impossible finally seemed to happen. Europe and North America were connected by a telegraph cable resting on the floor of the Atlantic Ocean. 11 days later, Queen Victoria sent a 98-word message to U.S. President James Buchanan. A message that once would have spent weeks crossing the ocean by ship arrived in just minutes. The world celebrated. Many believed the oceans had finally been conquered. But the celebration didn't last. Less than 4 weeks later, the cable fell silent. It had failed. From 1858 to 1866, engineers continued redesigning almost every part of the project. The cables became stronger. The machinery became more reliable. The ships became more capable. Every failure made the next attempt smarter than the last. Then, in July 1866, after 12 years of persistence, the breakthrough finally came. The giant steamship SS Great Eastern successfully laid a new transatlantic cable. That single achievement changed how humanity thought about communication. Soon, one cable became many. By the early 1900s, submarine cables were connecting continents across the Atlantic, Pacific, and Indian Oceans. What began as one impossible experiment slowly evolved into a global network. But another question emerged. How do these cables survive in one of the harshest places on Earth? The answer begins with where they are placed. In the deep ocean, often 3,000 to 5,000 meters below the surface, the seabed is remarkably calm. There are no crashing waves, no hurricanes, no sunlight. The cables simply rest on the ocean floor, protected by multiple layers of steel, copper, and specialized insulation. Closer to shore, where ship anchors and fishing gear pose greater risks, they are buried beneath the seabed using underwater plows. Today, more than 600 active submarine cables, stretching over 1.4 million kilometers, connect the world's continents. When a fault is detected, engineers calculate its location by measuring how long it takes for a light signal to reflect back through the fiber. A specialized repair ship is dispatched. They remove the damaged section, splice in a new one, test every fiber. then carefully lower it back onto the seabed. This invisible network carries almost everything that makes modern life possible. International phone calls, financial markets, cloud computing, scientific research, streaming, online gaming, medical consultations, business meetings between continents. Even many satellite communications ultimately pass through these submarine cables once their signals reach ground stations. Every day, thousands of ships sail above them. Aircraft cross oceans overhead. The sea reveals nothing. Yet beneath the waves lies one of humanity's greatest engineering achievements, a network built through decades of experimentation, persistence, and innovation. The remarkable thing about the invisible wires beneath the ocean isn't simply that they exist. It's that generation after generation of engineers solved one impossible problem after another, until an idea that once seemed beyond imagination became one of the foundations of modern civilization. Some of humanity's greatest inventions don't stand above us like skyscrapers or monuments. They lie quietly beneath the surface, doing exactly what they were designed to do. This is the hidden ledger.